Iran will send Ukraine the black boxes of the Ukrainian plane that its military shot down earlier this month, killing all 176 people on board. Iranian media on Saturday quoted Tehran officials and also said they are prepared for experts from France, Canada and the United States to analyse the footage. The plane was downed on January 8th, hours after Iran fired ballistic missiles at 2 Iraqi bases housing US troops in retaliation for Washington's drone strike in Baghdad that killed Tehran's top commander. Iran has denied the Ukraine plane strike was intentional.
In an exclusive interview with Al Jazeera, the spokesperson for Iraq's Hezbollah brigades has confirmed a meeting in Iran of all the major Shia armed groups in the region. It was held in the city of Qom, and he said they chalked out the future course of action against, quote, U.S. aggression.
But in this exclusive interview, the spokesman, Mohan Bhagwat of Kataib Hezbollah or Hezbollah Brigades Group, is opening up for the first time in front of the media after the attacks which took place on the border between Iraq and Syria, and then the attack on the U.S. Embassy and the ensuing targeting of the commander of the Popular Mobilization Forces, Mehdi al-Mohandes and Qasem Soleimani, as well as the attacks that followed that by Iran.
Dramatic move ahead of the crucial peace conference in Berlin. The commander, Khalifa Haftar, shut down oil ports in eastern Libya. The new disruption in the state's energy industry has led to a halt of more than half the country's oil output. Sharing the border to the west with fellow OPEC member Algeria, Libya is the 16th largest country in the world in terms of land mass. Libya's oil crescent has reserves in abundance, and in fact, with the amount of fossil fuel in store, it ranks 9th globally. This quantity accounts for about 3% of the world's total oil reserves. Libya has proven reserves equivalent to 594.2 times its annual consumption.
On Saturday morning, the first members of a mass migration of 4,000 Hondurans arrived at Mexico's southern border. Many had been travelling days to get this far, but now they found their way ahead blocked. After a brief scuffle involving a few young men, the gates on the border bridge were closed. Many here are fleeing poverty, and some the country's murderous gangs. After a pause, the Mexican authorities began letting them through, 20 at a time. It didn't help that migration authorities refused to say where they were taking the Hondurans in buses. What Mexico's president said is that he'll give people visas to work in the south of the country or asylum if they qualify for it.
In Yemen, 60 government soldiers have been killed in a missile strike in the northern region of Marib. The attack happened at a military training camp. It's believed to have taken place during evening prayers. Sources say Houthi rebels were behind the attack, as Mohammed Al-Attab explains.
According to the Houthi spokesman, he says that on Friday they have already foiled an advancing attempt by the Saudi and government-backed forces towards Nehm region. This latest fatalities that we have heard and received about there are different stories.
This has been, without a doubt, the most violent day so far of these protests that have been going on for 3 months. Earlier in the day, everything very quiet, just a few small protests after a very active week this week. And then a group of protesters went to the parliament and started trying to get through the barriers there, which have been manned by riot police really since these protests began. Very quickly, the riot police responded with water cannon, which is quite rare for them to use. Many of the protesters felt that that was an unnecessary reaction. And from there, many more protesters arrived, and really we saw violent clashes throughout the evening. Over 4 hours, continuous clashes all across downtown Beirut. Clouds of tear gas everywhere. Hundreds of canisters were fired by riot police, and they were using rubber bullets too, at quite close range. Horrific injuries. We were seeing people with bleeding injuries, bleeding mouths, some shot at as they tried to run away.
China has reported 17 new cases of a mysterious coronavirus on Sunday, the weekend before the Lunar New Year holiday, when hundreds of millions of people travel around the country. Authorities said the additional cases broke out in the city of Wuhan, which has been regarded as the epicenter of the outbreak. Out of the new cases, 3 people are said to be in severe condition. The previously unknown virus strain has caused strong concern as it shows similarities to the severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, which claimed nearly 650 lives across mainland China and Hong Kong in the early 2000s. The virus has so far infected 62 people in Wuhan. 2 people have died from organ damage caused by the virus.
An investigation is underway after a small fire was started in a Parisian restaurant in the early hours of Saturday. Firefighters say it was quickly extinguished at La Rotonde, which was where President Emmanuel Macron celebrated after qualifying for the second-round runoff of the 2017 presidential elections. It comes after 6 weeks of strike action across France over Macron's pension reforms. There was a forced break-in and a beginning of a fire. Is this linked to the President of the Republic? Certainly. We're not going to accuse without proof, without knowing, but certainly. Friday night saw the President having to reportedly escape a theatre in the city when protesters entered shouting, "Macron resign." Demonstrators were quickly removed from the building by police.
A deal has been agreed on the future of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, who are to step down as working royals in the spring. Buckingham Palace confirmed on Saturday that Prince Harry and his wife Meghan will no longer receive public funds. They won't use their royal titles either. They've also said that they want to pay back taxpayers' money spent on renovating their home in Windsor. They plan to spend most of their time living in Canada.
Well, Harry and Meghan had said that they had wanted to step back from their royal duties, but this is much more than that. They're not just stepping back, they are stepping away entirely from royal life. It was clearly felt by senior members of the royal family that this idea of a role that was a hybrid, half in, half out, just wasn't viable, that there needed to be this clean break for clarity, and they would now step away entirely from their royal life.
Two days after RSS chief demanded a two-child policy, RSS chief reiterated today that his comments were only to control India's population. AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi slammed Mohan Bhagwat, saying the real problem in this country is unemployment, not population. RSS chief later clarified, saying he was simply giving solutions for population control. This comes after RSS chief reportedly on Friday said their next area of focus will be to seek policy intervention for the implementation of a two-child norm in the country.